Moat on the volley, and back corner. What a start for West Bromwich Albion. Unbelievable! West Bromwich Albion have ruined his big day.
Line again, and it's Adam Wingy who gets the final touch, and West Bromwich Albion now have a 2-goal cushion.
The Baggies Podcast, giving you the latest news, views and opinions on all things Albion. Hello and welcome back to the Baggies Podcast, where of course we're giving you all the latest news, views and opinions on all things Albion. Today we're back again for another match reaction episode, chatting today about the 3-0 loss against Fulham at Craven Cottage at Saturday lunchtime. We'll also be having a look ahead in this episode to next week's game on Wednesday against Hull City. And since it's Halloween weekend, we'll be asking you for your most shocking players that you've seen for West Bromwich Albion. But for today's episode, to chat about all these things, we are joined by the very talented Liam Harris. Liam, how are you? Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. I'm very good. Obviously, a little bit scarred after this afternoon, but that's part of being an Albion fan.
Absolutely. It can be rough at times, but it's all worth it, hopefully, in the end. But Liam, people may recognise your name and recognise your work from an Albion perspective. What sort of things have you been doing that Albion fans might recognise?
So it started with the programme covers in the season we got promoted during lockdown. So I was brought on board to do programme covers for that season with a bit of a illustration comic book twist, which took off pretty well, actually. I think the club were looking for a sort of push to the younger audience to, when families take their kids to a match day, they want a souvenir to take home with them. And it was sort of, let's see if we can target kids to, want to pick them up and, have something to read and look at half time and stuff like that. So that they brought me on board to sort of freshen up the programme a bit. And it sort of took on from there. And, I'm still doing illustration stuff for the club, whether it be for the foundation or, the main club as well. So, yeah, it's good. And, every now and then when results are good, they'll pull me in.
Absolutely. And is it a case of when we get a decent result, you get pulled in to make a little picture of somebody who's done particularly well in that game?
Yeah, well, I mean, I guess obviously with the way social media is, it's hard to start praising and pumping up things when, things aren't going so well. And obviously, as well, some fans will then target whoever's done it. So sometimes you can be the backlash of a bad result. And obviously, the club are nice enough to not put me in that position, which is really, really nice of them. But obviously, as well, you want fans to get pumped up. You want them to be, retweeting things and, pushing things out there and stuff like that. So it's a good time to get stuff out there when people are hyped up and, results are going well. So, they get me in when things are going good. And I still, offer them the chance when things are going bad to pick it up again. But they've got what they want to do, so I come in when needed.
Yeah, absolutely. And sort of how long? So you say you've been doing that since the start of the promotion seasons. How often would you say that you get brought in now and again to do these artworks for the club?
At least once a month. Before it was a lot more, obviously with lockdown and the way money was being spent at clubs. Things like bringing in illustrators and an animator is not necessarily a priority. It's more seen as a luxury sort of thing. So, it was sort of a case of that was put on the back burner for a little while. But no, it was good. And even through the first lockdown when we were finishing off the programs, they still sold. People were still buying them, which was really nice. And I managed to get the Brunty's last game program done, which was really nice. And that was a special one to have it be his last as well. But I sort of came on board at the end of the season before, really, because that's when we started having discussions, about what we could do. Because obviously I come from an illustration and art and animation background from within children's television, hence my style. And they sort of wanted to go down the junior baggies route. What could we do with Baggy Bird, all that sort of stuff. And then programs got brought up, and I've done a lot of stuff for the kids side of things, whether it be for the shop. You can buy some of the prints of the legends in cartoons and stuff like that. And just lately, we've been doing the print that was sold for the Bomber While and Ali evening that was last week. with all the profits going to the foundation, which is great because we've raised, hundreds and, and into the thousands for charity, which is great, and if I can, offer that sort of work to them, then, I'm here for it. So, yeah, it's been really good, and I'm always here to pitch new ideas to them. I get great chances to work with people like Liverpool, the Premier League, ATP tennis, stuff like that. So when I get to bring some of the cool bits I do with them and say to the club, well, look what I'm doing for, bigger organisations, stuff like that. This is, these are the things that people are reacting to at the moment. Can we bring them to, obviously we're a smaller club than people like Liverpool and Inter Milan who I've worked with before. But, bringing that sort of cool energy and stuff like that into our club, it will just, give them a bit of a boost. And especially with the younger audiences, because that's all they want to tweet and react to now. So which is right up my street. So, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. That's great to hear, and great to see the work that you've been doing regarding the foundation, and obviously raising the money for the foundation with the obviously printer of Ali Robertson, John Weil, and Tony Bomber Brown. How amazing has that been to be producing that fantastic artwork, but also raising money for that great cause at the same time?
Yeah, well, I know, especially the foundation, I've always said to them, guys, if you're ever in a position where you want to raise more funds, because obviously a traditional route isn't let's do a drawing and stuff like that. It's more of a case of let's get hands on. But during lockdown, it was a case of, well, what can we do from home? And I said to them, well, I can give you something to go ahead and run with. And I produced that piece. I think it was the beginning of this year or the end of last year. With the knowledge of there being an evening where they were going to, be all there and talk to fans and stuff like that. So we timed it so that we could get them all out ready to be, go on sale when, the evening was there. And, it was really nice to be a part, because obviously those three guys are my dad's heroes, which is really strange because, obviously my history of them was, I wasn't even born then. And I think one of the first games I can ever remember was Bomber's testimonial when I was a kid. And my dad was a steward, and he stuck me in with the away fans when we played Jamaica and lost 1-0. And so it's strange that I'm now doing, his drawing and he's sticking it on his wall and all that sort of stuff. So it's nice that it's sort of come full circle that, I was drawing pictures of Albion players when I was a kid before I became, a full-time animator and animation director. But to be able to give stuff back to the club now is really nice, really special.
Yeah, absolutely. That's really great to hear, and glad to see that story sort of come into that full circle and sort of come to the fact that you're making things for the club and making things of those icons that your dad saw play. But yeah, let's start off our match reaction if you don't mind, Liam. Let's crack on with a slightly more sour note today. A 3-0 loss, a bit of a Halloween horror show really for Albion. 3-0 at Craven Cottage against a promotion rival Fulham. Starting off sort of pre-match and going into the game, obviously beating Bristol City 3-0 in the previous game, losing to Swansea the game before. What were your thoughts and feelings going into this big hitting game?
Yeah, I think right before the game, I'd seen a lot of stuff from other people tweeting in the build up to this, that I think this game more than any other, fans were presuming we were going to walk away with nothing. And I think it comes off the back of, it seems that there seems to be a little bit of a pattern in the last couple of away games in particular, where we don't know how to react to teams that want to press. Swansea did it, Stoke did it, and Fulham have done it today. And we can't seem to, if we're going to play a high line, people are going to keep pinging balls, over the top and in behind. Fulham did that every chance they got. Swansea did it every time they got. Fortunately for us, Swansea took them 50 minutes to do it. But during that 50 minutes, they were doing it every time. And I said, one of these, he's not going to be offside and he's going to score. Then on 50 minutes or 60 minutes, they got one and he was onside and he scored. And today they were just pinging balls around the back and we couldn't cope. And it seems like that we can get that right at home games because other teams feel like they need to sit back and soak it up. Whereas when we're playing away, they push forward and we can't deal with that. So I kind of saw some of that coming. I didn't see the way we were going to concede coming, and I don't think anybody else did. But I think the sort of writing was on the wall from the start because things away from home haven't been addressed. And the pattern has been, we're getting pressed. Stoke, Swansea, and today have all been the same. And at no point did we look threatening in any three games. Obviously, we scored against Swansea, but that was a mistake by them. So he's got his work cut out for him to fix things away from home. At home, we look fairly comfortable at times, but there's something not clicking away from home when we're trying to play that high line. Teams are just like, okay, well, if that's the case, we'll stick somebody on the last man and ping a ball over the top, and it seems to be working.
Yeah, it definitely, so many chances come from just those. You mentioned the Swansea game, it took them a while, but it certainly did.
But they did it all the time.
Yeah.
You watch it from the get-go. They knew that where our line was going to be. Every time. I think they had like 12 offsides in 50 minutes. We were like, okay, this is great. We're going to keep doing it. I said to myself, one of these he's going to get through and he's going to score. And as soon as I said it, it happened. And, today it was, they were pinging balls over the top for Dekodov, Reed and players like that. And they're going to get in behind. I mean, there was that chance, I can't remember what it was, on their left-hand side. And he took two of our, I think he took both Furlong and Ajayi on. Correct me if I'm wrong on those two plays. And he cut into the middle. And fortunately for us, the other player blazed it over the bar. But again, it's a ball over the top and getting wrapped around behind because of our high line. And if you're going to play a high line, you need players who are going to be able to catch strikers and wingers quickly. We don't.
Yeah, we don't have that. Yeah, it was Cabano, I think, who skinned both of them, and then all of a sudden, and all of a sudden they were in again, and it was because of that ball over the top. But Liam, going into this game, obviously there was one change made in the line. It was a bit of an error with the Twitter account, because I think most people thought that Robinson was starting when actually it was Hugill who was starting. But Malumbi came in for Livermore. What were your thoughts on that change made by Ismael?
I might get a bit of stick for this. I've always been an advocate for Jake Livermore. I think the little things people miss, and it's that, obviously, yes, he can be fairly rash in a challenge, but there's a few occasions where people miss where he actually gets it back. And even if it's a 2-yard pass, we're through. Today, he didn't even get the chance to do that because we never won the ball in the middle of the park. I can't remember seeing us dominate in the middle at all. And I think that's where we struggle with the most in away games. In home games, we seem to be able to control it and dictate where we want it to go. He hasn't solved the riddle of away games, especially in the last four away games. It's a tricky one, because obviously last week was great with Malumbi and Snodgrass, and obviously Snodgrass made that error today, which I think every player in their career has made an error like that. So we'll just sweep that one under the carpet. So, it was an error. But you need a leader on the pitch, and nobody speaks up louder than possibly Bartley or Livermore. So you need men who are going to pick them up, dust themselves off and go again. The problem is that we were already facing a mountain to climb by the time Livermore started to bark. You know what I mean? Before we started making those commands, it was like, okay, well, we've gone 2-0 down to two complete, mess ups and things like that. And I think you sort of get drained at that point. Livermore's been with us for so long that he's seen this script 1,000 times. He would have seen that and gone, I've been here so many times with West Brom. I know what's going to happen, but how do I change it? And I think Luck just ran out by the third goal. In fact, by the red card, Luck had run out. Any chance of getting back in it, but you've got a chance to make a fresh start against Hull, because Hull are very poor this season. So I would potentially look to reignite that Snodgrass-Malumbi partnership just to try it, but try it in a game where it's going to be effective. Today, I'm not so sure. I don't think it would have made a difference, because they overrun us in the middle, and we put ourselves in such a jeopardy from the start that I don't think whoever was going to be up front, or whether it was Hugill or Robinson, those balls never got up front. Yes, Hugill didn't do a lot and didn't offer much, but I can't remember a ball being played in and around him.
No, that's
right.
You
want the ball played to you.
Yeah, and I find it really hard to kind of, because obviously Livermore's, I don't think he's anybody's favourite at the moment. I'm not really sure where this has all come from all of a sudden, because most of the season, most people have just been, clapping along to him and just saying he's been great. But all of a sudden, I suppose they've seen what Malumbi can do, and it's all gone out the window with Livermore. But I just find it really hard to knock him, because he's a player who is obviously giving every inch of his effort, and he's a player that's just not afraid to back out of those tackles. He's not a player that's afraid to.
For example,
that
tackle he intercepted in the first half and he broke through. He was, he
had
three defenders in front of him. There was no Albion player near him. Yeah. He won that ball and he had so much space, and nobody thought, okay, well, I'm going to go and run him, assist him, anything. No, but they all just stood and watched. That's like Sunday league tactics. So if somebody wins the ball, they can do it on their own. And I can see fight in him, and I can see why people prefer the Snodgrass-Malumbi partnership, because it's that sort of ticky-tacky football sort of thing. But the problem was, and that's not really a problem, but you've got to look at who we were playing. Bristol City were on an unbelievably bad run. And I think even if you'd have had Jake in there, I think we'd have swept them away still. Because we've got the quality and the attacking prowess to punish most teams in this division, especially a team who are on a bad run like Bristol City. So today, I think you needed that bit of grit, which was Jake. But the problem is that we just, the cards we were dealt today were just not good. I think the tactics from the start looked like they were working, and even in the beginning of the second half, it looked like we were on the front foot. But we were just undone by just, I can't tell whether it's sheer luck, sheer incompetence. I'm not sure, but I can honestly see us turning around and beating the whole 4-0 on Wednesday. It's that we're in that sort of position where one thing goes wrong, 1,000 things goes wrong. Yeah, when things are going for you in a game, like Bristol City started quickly, got a goal, and I think that again will happen against Hull next week as well.
Yeah, and I mean that chance for Livermore when he broke forward as well, going back to that, I think actually Grant kind of ran away from him, like sort of just ran the opposite way, which I thought was a bit strange. I think I tweeted it.
I think he ran to the back post.
Yeah.
I think he was running. I think he was expecting a whip ball in, but Jake stood there for a good, second and a half, thinking, do I shoot or am I going to pass it? But I've got nobody to pass to, so I'll shoot. So he shot and hit defender. Yeah. But if we're playing a high line, where the hell is everybody else? Because your defenders are already touching the halfway line and he's on his own in their half. Yeah, Hugo was kind of like, I think Hugo was kind of behind him and he wasn't keeping up with Livermore, which is a little bit worrying, to be honest. But then, you have to ask like where Phillips was in that. I can't picture where he was on the pitch. It's just kind of like when you're squeezing up the pitch like that, you should expect all 10 of your outfield players to be sort of in that, well, not obviously that high up the pitch in terms of centre backs, but wing backs and midfielders should be sort of catching up with him at that point. Absolutely, and I think as well, surely they would have recognised, Jake's not normally in this position. What's he going to do with it? Let's go and help him. But there was none of that. Because, for example, if that was Grady, I'm sure, 9 out of 10 people go, he can take a couple of people on and maybe get a shot off. But it's Jake, and that's nothing on Jake. But, I mean, he's the kind of guy who will hold the ball and wait till the next person comes along to give it to. And there was nobody there, which is a real shame, because if you flip the side and that was maybe Decordova picking up the ball in the middle, you're going to have wingers wrapping around him and Mitrovic going, I want the ball. None of our guys did that, which is a shame, because, it would have been a good chance. And he was unlucky with the ball in from Townsend in the second half as well. That was a centre midfielder's finish. He cleared it. He did Fulham's defending job for them, I think, by just clearing it. He did, he could have let that bounce off any part of his body and it would have gone in. But no, again, he was the guy rushing to get into that space, and our strikers and wingers weren't. Yeah, and even behind him, it was Furlong. Was it? Furlong and Livermore, the ones on the line. Yeah, it was worrying how people just looked at Livermore and thought, you can take that on your own, and I was just going, don't let him take that on his own. Yeah, I think every season fans will look for a scapegoat to vent all their frustrations on. Sadly, every year that Jake has been here, there's been a period of about 4 weeks where he gets it. He had it last year, and he got kicked out of the side. And the year before, he definitely had it, because I remember the period, because I'm pretty sure I was trying to pitch to the Albion that we should do more Jake stuff, having, as in being captain. And they were like, I don't think fans like him at the moment. So there is that, that there's always that period where he sort of gets into that. But I don't think it's now. I really don't. I back him to, pull his socks up and pull the team up and go again Wednesday. Yeah, absolutely. Let's hope he sort of, well, I can't even say bring out a better performance, because I can't have thought that he was any worse than anybody else really on the pitch today. He was certainly not at all. Yeah, he was certainly not a player that I'd look at and go, he was particularly bad today. I think it was just collective, really. But obviously, Fulham took the lead through a penalty from Aleksandar Mitrovic, which was, pretty damning, and refereeing was very questionable there. Liam, what did you make of that call where Bartley fouled Mitrovic? Well, adjudged to have fouled him anyway. Yeah, I applauded it when he did it, because I thought that is a great tackle. That is a proper old school Saturday morning tackle, where where the defender's going to go. You just stick your foot in and wrap him around the back of his leg, and you're going to knock the ball back into play, and you're off. But obviously, and even the commentator said it best. It was Mitrovic's fault that fooled the referee, and the referee's in a great position. And I'm not going to take anything away from Mitrovic's penalty because it was good. It was great. He's not going to save that, and shoe on the other foot. We'd have taken that all day. But I'm not a big fan of VAR, but obviously today would have been great to have it. But saying that, these things come in swings and roundabouts. So there's going to be a period in our season where it's going to go the opposite way. We're going to get one which we probably didn't deserve, and it's probably going to even itself out. But sadly, it came at a point where we were on top. We were keeping the ball. We were getting chances, and Fulham were slightly on the back foot. Not massively, but, we were well in the game. And for a tackle that was such a good tackle to be claimed as a penalty is unbelievably frustrating, because you look at that, and as a manager, I can imagine him saying, that's what you've got to do. If he, and Bartley knew what he was doing. He knew where he was planting his foot. He knew where that ball was going to go after he touched it. So I think the commentator also said that is the referee's 4th red card in 4 games.
Yeah.
So he's trigger happy. So doesn't sound like it's a surprise that he was willing to give a penalty or a red card today. So.
No, definitely not. I don't know if you saw, but there was a clip from an Italian game not a few days ago where somebody made I wouldn't say a similar challenge to Bartley, but he brought the ball away perfectly, and the ref just all of a sudden just blows the whistle because of the other player's fall, and just sends the player who made the tackle off. It was a perfect ball winning challenge, and it was like a sort of last ditch challenge, but. Yeah, it just reminded me of that from what we've seen over the past week or so. But Bartley, he's done really well because Mitrovic is obviously making a run across him, across his body, and sort of across Bartley's body shape, and he's done really well, as you said, to make that wrapping round sort of action and win the ball. But
you can tell his stance. You can see he knows where that ball's going to go, because Mitrovic is going to try and knock it to his right and cut it across Sam. And he knows, if I can get my foot round, I'll just poke it back through his legs. That's exactly what he's done. Because he's had to wrap his leg around, obviously Mitch is naturally going to fall over his leg, which is exactly what happened. And I'm not going to go as far as to say he died, but obviously it was a touch dramatic. But and that started the downward spiral of an afternoon that was full of poor officiating, really.
Yeah, well, we'll go on to the next one, I think, with Darnell Furlong's red card. I think it was for denial of a clear goal scoring opportunity. I think that's why it was given. What did you make of that particular tackle? I think it was on Harry Wilson.
Yeah, so live, I thought it was a red card, personally, because obviously from where the camera is, you're quite far away and you can't see the faint touch that you can see in the close-up. Then you do see him touch the ball first, followed by the man's legs, and I can see why he would send him off, because he's a quick winger. If he gets that ball and Darnell doesn't ease through on goal, he's going to take it. So it's kind of, I don't like to sit on the fence and say it should or it shouldn't, but I'm kind of have to, because it's how you interpret that tackle, really. He does touch the ball first, then he gets the man. Yes, he is. Actually, I can't remember. Was he the last man?
I think he was just about the last man. I think Sammy had stepped forwards, I think, a little bit, and Darnell was left at the back with Wilson.
And the thing is, if he would have left it or mistimed that and completely missed the ball completely, yes, he would have been through. So it's a tough one.
Yeah, it's certainly not as clear cut as the penalty, really, as to what the right decision was. I just felt that. I think that Furlong's got a little bit of he's got the stud on the ball, really, and he sort of rolled it at Harry Wilson in a way, and Harry Wilson it looks like Harry Wilson's just come and taken it, and Furlong's cleared him out. So you can see from the referee seeing it from behind as just seeing it as he's just clattered him and he's going in on goal.
Yeah, exactly. And obviously, like I said, from where we're sitting watching it on TV, my first thought was, yes, it's a red card because he's clattered him. And the ref's only going to have one view of it as well. So if he's only got that one chance to look at it, he's probably going to send him off. Because I think he actually got his next red card bang on. And I know that sounds, cliche that the fan is going with the ref's decision when it's for their team. But I think he definitely got the second one right. The first one, I'm not so sure.
Yeah, it was worrying refereeing.
Yeah, but it does make me think of right wing back. Who's going to step in and
Yeah, I've actually got that down. Who do you think you'd stick in that mix for the right wing back? Because we don't have I wouldn't say a natural replacement to play there.
We don't have a natural replacement. Would we look to Keane, who we brought in?
Yeah, possibly Brian. I suppose Taylor Gardner-Hickman could be in the mix, because there's been talk about him potentially coming into a wing back position should there be injuries or suspension.
Yeah, although it's strange because we've been playing Matt Phillips in a couple of the games as striker, a few games this season. But actually there was a period of time where we played him at wing back. Yeah. So we may be forced, because of his pace and his agility, to force him to go and sit and play wing back, because he can pop a ball in from anywhere. Obviously, we're going to lose the throw-in threat, but if we've got somebody who can whip a ball in like Matt, still in that same position, and have an extra attacking midfielder on the pitch, then I would possibly think about putting Matt at right back.
Yeah, it's a good shout, actually. I suppose there's a few options in there. Keane Bryan obviously was so good at that sort of overlapping centre-back at Sheffield United when he got the chance to play. So he's obviously used to marauding up and down the right-hand side. And then Matt Phillips, as you mentioned there, I think he's played there a few times. And then Taylor Gardner-Hickman is another one who you might opt to bring in, or if you fancy a sort of younger option. But it's definitely a bit of a conundrum for Ismael. But Liam, where did things ultimately go wrong for you in this particular fixture?
I think it was giving them the space to play. Fulham have probably got the best footballing side in the league when they keep the ball, and we allowed them to do it. And the thing is, when you allow teams who've got that sort of ability to keep that amount of possession, and I know we've had teams where we've had 25 possession in the whole game, we've still come away with a win. But the problem is he's giving it away to somebody who's got a striker in form like Mitrovic, who's on, I think the commentator said afterwards, he's on course to get 49 goals this season. Yeah. The last thing you want to do is give him any space. Doesn't matter where it is on the pitch. And we gave them too much room to ping a ball over the top. And I was hoping we would have learnt from our mistakes at Swansea that if you're going to play our high line, you've got to stick on that last man and make sure he's, or if you're going to step up when you do it. And we didn't do it at any time. And they were just, if you think of their centre-back, was just pinging balls over the top. Every time he could, Robinson was doing exactly the same. Anytime he got a chance, that was straight over, which is a good tactic. Because I would, if I saw, an opposition playing a high line, I would say to my lads, do exactly the same. Get it over there, force them to run backwards. Because yes, they've got big blokes for, set pieces to defend against, which we did. We did that absolutely fine. They look like no threat from set pieces whatsoever. One thing they're going to struggle at is balls over the top, and that was exactly that. And we did nothing to combat it at all.
No, it
came to fruition. So
yeah, it just seems to be the same kind of things. I think one thing for me that stands out is ball retention. I just feel, I know we're not really going to be a possession-based side, but it just doesn't seem as if we're capable of just keeping the ball and just having a little spell of possession. It just seems like it's, as soon as we get it, it has to go forward, and it has to go forward straight away, and then it kind of just ends up coming straight back.
Which is a tactic, because I keep saying this, we've got the quality to keep that ball, retain that ball, play football. But it's a direct tactic by the coaches, and the manager, that when you get it, that ball's got to go forward quick. You could see that from the first 5 games of the season. That's exactly what he wanted to do. Problem is that because we have been found out with how teams can play in behind us, those balls aren't working half as well as they used to. And he's going to have to find a way to combat that. Fortunately, we were doing it against Bristol City, but they were poor. And Bristol City would say that themselves. They weren't coming expecting anything from us. But when you come up against a team like that today, it felt like you just needed to keep it a bit longer, just so you get a bit of a foothold into the game. So I don't think there was any real period apart from the first 10 minutes of the second half where it looked like, okay, we can keep the ball a little bit, make some chances, and we started to amp it up again before obviously the Furlong incident. But yeah, I think you're right. Ball retention would have been good. And I still play football. And it's a case of, I always say to our lads, just keep the ball a bit, just get yourself into it, get your foot on the ball, get that bit of confidence. And you could tell that, especially with Snodgrass's goal, that confidence, I say it was confidence, it was a misplaced pass, but there was nobody there to come and collect the ball. Everyone had peeled away from him. And obviously his last option was, okay, I'll pass it back to Sam Johnson. Yes, he got it wrong. But why was everybody so far away from him? It was a case of Clark had put Townsend in a bad position. He had to then get rid of it, get a bit closer together, do short 2-yard passes, get the ball, break. And it was like, okay, well, when we're going to keep it, let's not try and make a mistake. And actually, we ended up making a really bad error. But hopefully that's something he can work on the training ground with, correct. And let's see what happens with that high line when we don't have Furlong at the back.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we'll now head over to get the thoughts of a Fulham fan and the host of the Fulham-Ish podcast, which is Sammy James, who I'm sure will be absolutely delighted with this result for Fulham. Me and Liam will be back straight after the break to chat about the upcoming fixture this week against Hull City and also a little bit of Halloween fun at the end. But yeah, over to you, Sammy.
Hey guys, Sammy here from the Fulham-Ish Podcast with some opposition reaction to yesterday's game. And as you can imagine, absolutely delighted with how it went from a Fulham perspective. I was confident going into the match. I looked at West Brom's form, I looked at our form, and I just think player for player that this Fulham team on their day is a little bit stronger than what you've got. I think you've got some fantastic players in there. I think you've got some very, very dangerous options up front. The fact that you guys can bring players like Dean Garner and Callum Robinson off the bench is a show of your attacking strength. But I just felt like in midfield, we were always going to have good day with the lineup that we went with. Harrison Reed, John McElserry, you don't get too many better midfield pivots at this level. And I think they were the ones that bossed the game yesterday and meant that we got the results that we did. John McElserry is an absolute superstar at this level. He was sensational yesterday. Harrison Reed's industry was also fantastic. And I think it was their work rate that was the difference yesterday. Obviously, Aleksandar Mitrovic is the man that got all the headlines, and rightly so. Another hat-trick, 18 and 15. I genuinely think he may be the greatest player that's ever graced the championship. Particularly on this form, he seems particularly unstoppable. And I don't think West Brom will be the last team that he gets 2 or 3 goals against this season. Obviously, I imagine you guys are livid about the penalty decision. It was soft. I can't dress it up any other way. I don't think that Bartley fouls Mitrovic. I think it's a bit of a clumsy tackle and had the potential to be a penalty, but he definitely gets more of the ball than the man. I will caveat that, though, that the challenge that Bartley then made on Adoy immediately afterwards, whilst I don't think it was a Stonewall pen, was much more of a potential penalty decision than the one on Mitrovic. But the whistle had kind of been blown by that point. Did that have a factor? Who knows? I'll obviously take it all day long. It sends us on our way. And I think once we are ahead at Craven Cottage, we're particularly tough to play against. The second goal, I mean, from a West Brom perspective, you must be livid. It was good pressure by John McElserry on Snodgrass. And also, you need a striker like Mitrovic who sniffs danger like that. Most strikers wouldn't have had the anticipation to get to that back pass, and you'd probably get away with it against most teams in this division. But with Aleksandar Mitrovic on the form he is, he'll take gifts like that all day long, and that really set us on our way. As for the other reffing decisions, obviously that red card for Furlong made a massive difference. I was a bit worried about you guys getting back into the match at that point, but once you went down to 10 men and 2 goals down, there was no way we were throwing it away. I thought it was a red. Personally, I think that Furlong got a lot more of the man than the ball, and Wilson clearly was last man, and I think it was the correct decision. I wouldn't be surprised if you guys disagree with that as well, but I think that it was the right call on that. Adebayo's red, absolutely the right call as well. Modern game, you go in, studs up on the ankle like that. For the last couple of seasons, it's been a red card and continues to be, and we'll miss him for the next 3 games. I thought West Brom's performance was pretty poor, personally. I was expecting much more of a threat from you guys, particularly up front. I thought that you'd play a much more intense press than you did. I know that Fulham have the ability to get round a press, but I think the way that Coventry pressed us so well a few weeks ago when we lost 4-1, I expected to see something similar from West Brom, but it wasn't really there. You allowed us to play quite a lot, which I always think is a bit of a recipe for disaster. And personally, the way that the Championship is now, Bournemouth first, Fulham second, West Brom's third is kind of how I see it remaining. I think that the 4-point cushion is massive. We've got a fairly good run of fixtures in November, mostly against teams in the bottom 4 or 5. So if Fulham can keep on this win of runs, then I think Fulham can edge away from West Brom, if I'm being honest. But look, there's a lot of football to play. We've still got to go to the Hawthorns, and I know that's a bit of a fortress for you guys. I'm certainly not counting my chickens yet, but certainly feeling good about Fulham's chances of finishing in the top 2 after yesterday. So best luck for the next few matches, and chat again later in the season.
Right. Thank you very much to Sammy for sending in that clip. And of course, you can check out the Fulham-Ish podcast via the link in the description of this episode. But it's now time to chat about the next game, hosting Hull City at the Hawthorns on Wednesday night, with our home record being completely parallel to our recent away record after losing 3 on the bounce away from home. Surely, Liam, there has to be a bit of a reaction to this defeat.
Oh, yeah, I think there will be. I think I said earlier in the show that, I can see us running away with a result on Wednesday night. I think he's got a plan for at home where we tend to don't give teams too much space. I mean, if you look at the Fulham game and you look at the Swansea game, especially in the second half, we gave them too much time on the ball. They've got the ability to do that, and I think when we're at home, what I've noticed is that we tend to close down a bit quicker the way we did in the first 5 games, and there's just that. We talk about the 12th man. I think our fans definitely do that at home. Away from home, our fans are tremendous, but I don't know what it is. It's just almost as if the players, I think they need to pick up on the energy a little bit more. And I genuinely do. I think it will be, a pretty similar game to the Bristol City one on Wednesday. I think it will be, I think we'll run away with it, and keep a clean sheet because, they'll want to perform and they'll want to make sure that they get back on track. Hull are not in a particularly good place at the moment either. I don't think, obviously on paper, quality speaks volumes of our team in comparison. And there should be no reason why we can't go and press on for a really good result on Wednesday night. The thing he's got to now tackle with, obviously with Furlong being out, is we talked about it, who's going to come in at right wing back. And we need to get people like Grant back in the game, who looked like a ghost today. He was, I say shadow of his former self, but he's been in terrific form. And it's a shame that we didn't play to his strengths at any point today. But I don't think we were able to with the way that Fulham set up and the way we set up. It didn't seem like it was going to be a day where strikers were going to be involved half as much. Hugill didn't really. Can you recall at any point either one of them having a strike on goal, if any?
No, definitely not. No.
So again, I think it's almost as if we've got a tactic for at home and a tactic for away. One is working, one isn't.
Yeah.
And and I think a lot of fans are getting on Val's back and saying, his tactics aren't working, but they're clearly working in one direction. But he needs to figure out the second one. And he, I think we were running off a complete buzz at the beginning of the season, which is why results were going for us away from home as well, and other teams were just getting settled. But it's starting to fall into place now that because we've been figured out away from home, that their 12th man is going to jump on our back, so they're going to be willing to press, get balls over the top, which they have been doing, scoring goals. And we, at no point in our last 3 away games, have looked like scoring. Yes, we scored 1 goal. Again, I said it was a mistake by Swansea. But other than that, not much. So I think it will be a return to form at home. Same as we've done in the last couple of games, and it will be a case of, well, where do we go from there?
Yeah, it's going to hopefully be a bounce back. I agree with you. I think it's going to be very similar to the Bristol City game. Hull, obviously, we're recording whilst they're playing at the moment, but they're currently 1-0 down at Coventry, who've been doing very well this season. So possibly another defeat for them, and they're not, as you mentioned, in the relegation zone, not in a good place at the moment. So could hopefully be the case of Bristol City again. But in terms of the lineup, what would you change, or if anything? I think, well, obviously there's going to have to be one change, definitely at right wing back. But what would you do differently personnel wise ahead of this game?
I'd potentially bring in. It's a tricky one because, and I know a lot of people jump on Hugill's back as well, but he will run, and Callum will do exactly the same. But they're completely different players. And I think if you're going to play against a team like Hull, who aren't dissimilar to Bristol City, I think I would probably stick with Hugo, actually, and because Hull are going to get tired quick. And, when you get to that 60, 70 mark, Robinson coming on with a fresh pair of legs, he's gonna run rings around them when he gets the chance to. And if we're in a commanding point by then, he's gonna just make it all the more difficult for them. So I can see him sticking with Jordan, and I can see why. I would potentially mix things up maybe in the middle of the park. But again, and I think Gary Neville said this a while back, if I remember it rightly. If you've got a manager who's coming in and they've got a philosophy, you're going to have to stick with it for a while before that philosophy, cements itself among all the team. We're just over a quarter way through the season, and it's cemented itself in areas and not in others. But he seems to be playing. He's got a way he wants to play. He wants the players who he wants. For example, he said before the game, "Jake's my captain. Jake's going to play." And I'm all for it. If that's his captain and he's going to be the leader, great. And 9 times out of 10, he'll show that, and he'll get that bit between his teeth, and we'll go for it. And the players will want to rally around him. But I think it definitely is the chance for Molumby to come in and have a go, because against a weak Hull side, by all means, come and do and show what you can do, and then potentially give a headache for Val afterwards and say, well, actually, going into Middlesbrough, I think is the one after. Following Saturday,
right.
Middlesbrough, then give him a headache for Middlesbrough, because every team is different. Middlesbrough are a lot more of a physically, battling side, and I think that would then suit more Jake. And so I would potentially just say, well, look, have a rest, come back, be the captain you need to be against Middlesbrough potentially, and give Molumby a run out on Wednesday night.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's, as we saw with Molumby, is really good against Bristol, who are obviously in bad form and seem to be a struggling side at the moment. So potentially coming in and doing the same thing against Hull could be a very good thing for us. But yeah, let's go into a little bit of fun now, Liam, for this episode. Let's go in for a little bit of spooky fun here on the Baggies Podcast. As it is Halloween weekend after all. So we're going to chat a little bit about the most shocking players. And I think, Liam, you've got a particularly shocking moment for us from an Albion fan's perspective. Would you like to tell us a little bit about what that is?
Yeah. Fans might be able to jump in and remind me who the opposition was at the time, but it was Carnew's miss from 2 yards. I think were we in the Premier League at the time? I think it might have been one of our second season back. I think it was actually against Fulham at the Hawthorns. And I think he was 2 yards out. He could have rolled it off of any part of his body, and it was harder to miss than it was to score. And he somehow managed to get it up and over the bar when he's standing here and the goal is there. And it was from his lower areas when he somehow managed to loop up and over the bar. And I think everybody in the ground had celebrated before he'd even touched the ball, because they knew it's only going to bounce off him and it's gone in. And I think it ended up being on Soccer AM or something for the miss of the season. And it was horrendous. And every time I think, because I've got some friends, because I live down south, I've got some Portsmouth friends, and they always talk about how they used to love Carnew. And I was like, yeah, he's great, but the one miss will just haunt me forever. Because it was shocking. And go on, if you guys can remember that, go and have a watch and you'll see why it's so scary.
Yeah, it sounds like it's not one that I remember particularly, but that is a pretty horrifying miss by the sounds of things. But Liam, do you have a player that kind of haunts you who's played in a West Bromwich Albion shirt?
Not particularly. I know there was a lot of people who I used to sit next to when I was younger who were not big fans of Scott Carson, and he used to haunt them a lot. I think he was when he was going through his rough patch, and he was the scapegoat of those couple of seasons. And they were horrified every time he was named in the team sheet, even though he was our only goalkeeper really at the time. Yeah. So I don't know what else they were expecting, but there was no real. I can't recall any real shockers. that probably didn't really live up to the hype. Have you got any that might strike the memory?
I've got one from my own personal perspective, which will be Marcus Rosenberg, which was a player that it gives me the shivers just sort of thinking about him playing for Albion, to be honest. I saw a tweet about Chris Brunt obviously doing one of those nights where he answers fans' questions and stuff, and he says that Marcus Rosenberg was probably one of the best players in training that he's ever seen, and then all of a sudden came to a match day and it still went to pieces. Yeah, which I think is really odd, and I can't picture him being a regular goal scorer in training, considering what we saw on a match day. Do you remember him much, Liam?
Yeah. Well, I'm of the parts that he plays, for our club, I remember. But it was sort of. But it was also in the period of time where we were starting to struggle a little bit. I think it was around the same sorts of years where I think we had a couple of games in a row where we were scoring 3 and conceding 3 from 3-0 up. I don't know if you remember those few seasons.
Yeah, I
remember Cardiff at home,
and there was there a West Ham as well that we ended up Mark Noble, I think, scored a really late penalty, and we'd been like 3, possibly even 4-0 up all the way through the game, and they came back.
Yeah, it was I think it was the period. I think it was the towards the end of the Berahino reign when that started to happen, and we started getting 3-0 up and just absolutely collapsing. And managers were looking for any player to turn to change things around. And I think that was in and amongst the time where Rosenberg sort of came into the dressing room and nothing happened even when he was there, which is a shame. But being an Albion fan is like being on a roller coaster, and we know what's coming every time somebody comes in and what we're supposed to expect from them. I think we're still, hopefully Grant's the answer to that. But for this season, especially with his goals contribution. But let's see what other fans think of their scariest moments.
Yeah, there are a few in there that I must say to the listener, these are very heavily influenced by today's game. I made the grave error of putting this tweet out at halftime asking for contributions, and here's a little bit of how they kind of went. So we've got one in here first that says he's currently playing up front for us, which was just at half time. So that would have obviously been Jordan Hugill at the time there. Yeah. We've got another one in here from Dave who says Hugill has just moved in ahead of Stuart Evans, who I can't say is a player that I remember at all. But we've got one in from Kieran who says Zohore. We've got one from Bob who says Paul Williams, but Zohore and Hugill are pressing him now. So Zohore and Hugill, I think, were equal winners there, but I must say that is very heavily influenced by today's game for certain.
I think I'd agree with him on Zohore. I think more so with Zohore was the fact that having heard what Cardiff City fans had said about him and seeing what he could do in that season in the Championship, he was they said he was the best thing since sliced bread, and he was tremendous. He would beat players, his finishing was top notch, and he looked like he had all the ability to come and do that for us. And he started off well. I think he scored a penalty against Reading to give us an equaliser 2 seasons ago. And it looked like, okay, well, we've got somebody on our hands then. And then from there, it just started to. There was a few, hits and misses. I know he hit the bar against Brentford that season as well, and he'd come close. And and those 2 inches could have made the difference to because goals make change the careers of strikers and especially confidence levels. And it just looked like he never got that confidence back. And he went off to Millwall, and I think Soccer AM retweeted the season's worst miss.
Yeah,
where
corner,
he took that
the corner flag. Yeah,
well, I think he went out for a throw in, and he was like 2 yards outside the 18-yard area. And I think the ability is always in these players because they wouldn't be professional footballers if they didn't have it in them from the start. It feels like something's got to give, and he didn't have it and doesn't have it at the moment. But down the line, he might have it for somebody else.
Yeah, I think that miss that you mentioned there kind of summed up Kenneth Zohore for West Bromwich Albion. He did a really nice sort of scoop turn to make his way past a couple of defenders, and then all of a sudden unleashes that shot that sort of a P roller out for a throw in. But yeah, Zohore is not one. I thought he was going to be all right this season. I thought he might actually have a part to play. I thought he was going to be in at least on the bench for most games, but I think that performance against Luton, I think he came on I think he only came on for the last 15 minutes, and I think that was quite damning, really, for Albion fans. And he got a lot of stick after that, if you remember rightly.
Yeah, I do.
Yeah, it was a little bit worrying, really. The stick that he got, but yeah, those are some spooky West Brom players and some shocking moments, and one there from you, Liam, about Carney. I think I'm sure West Brom fans will be quick to comment about that one and their memories from that. But a massive thank you, Liam, for joining me on the show today. It's been a pleasure chatting to you about the Fulham game, the Hull game, and also a few spooky moments in there as well. Thank you very much for coming on.
No problem. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolute pleasure. But that does bring me to the end of the Baggies podcast for this week. A big thank you for listening. Please feel free to let me know your spooky moments and spooky memories from players in the comment section below. And let me know your thoughts on the Fulham and the Hull games. And we'll see you in the next episode. Goodbye.